This content is brought to you by BEC Financial Technologies, developing and operating IT for Danish banks.
Hubert, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our Congress.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the last session of Azure Congress 2025. My name is Hubert Kobierzewski, and it's almost 18 years, so I'm almost an adult in data analysis. And my prime job is a practice lead in a company called Cogit. I do data integration, BI strategies, reporting, visualizations, data integration, and many things related with analyzing the condition, financial or operational condition of my customers. Plus, you can meet me in either on Koźmiński University or on our Warsaw Technology University, Politechnika Warszawska. And I mostly work with Microsoft technologies. That's why Azure came as a natural extension. Today's session, and plus let's say hobby is data community. I also lead communities. Like I see some people from here, they have visited Wrocław recently on SQL Day. So yes, that's the conference that I do organize with 30 other people. So what are we going to see today? The session is going to be quite short, but I want to tell you a little bit about how Fabric / Power BI communicates with outside world, and either from a user perspective or from a perspective of processes that happen in Fabric. So my first question, who uses Power BI for reporting? Okay, there are some people who uses Fabric for data analysis. Far less, but it's expected. And who works as Azure admin? Okay. What about architects? Okay, there are some people. So this session is for you. I will be presenting communication between various services from a perspective of somebody who designs solutions to be as secure as possible, but from somebody who is working on the data side. The other subject that we, as I said on the beginning, we will have a look at how to access securely or super securely Fabric, and we will also see what is going on when Fabric or Power BI wants to gather any data in a secure manner. So, first thing, maybe not with demo, but we will see. It shouldn't be with Git, but look at this. This is Fabric. This is a set of services. Fabric is like a shell. It's like a shell for many different services. We have data integration services. We have data lake, which means that we can store some files, expose them as tables. And we have also data warehouse, which is, from data analyst point of view, is just another database, but it's high performance database. Plus we can react on events, or we can do real-time reporting, which means that if an event happens, few seconds later, this event can be represented on your report. Plus, of course, we have reporting on this side. And the data is stored on something called OneLake, which is like a common data storage for the solution. And normally, when we, let's say this this network does not exist here. Normally, people just access it from internet. Like if let's have a look at my browser. Just a sec. Look at this. This is how I access the interface of Power BI. If people want to see any reports, then they just go to a workspace, they select a workspace, they select a report, they run it, and that's it. And this is the most popular way how users access reporting, just from internet. It's a service, yeah. But some customers, they have like let's say more strict requirements when accessing Fabric or Power BI. And what they require is like sometimes they need to access it from let's say just a very specific network. Then this option comes in the way, and what they can do, they can create a VNet and connect to whatever other VNets that they have in their architecture, and they can channel the network, the access through Azure private link. And this means that no other network or even or public internet access will be allowed here for Fabric. This means that if I don't know, go outside, if I use my mobile and let's say I'm not turning on my VPN, then I won't be able to access these resources. Okay, maybe resources of my customers, yes, because they wouldn't be protected in such a way, but my company's resources, no. How to set it? So it's like people who are admins of Power BI tenant, which means that this is organization-wide setting. They go to admin portal to this is the Power BI /Fabric admin portal, and they look for these settings for advanced networking. And here you can see this is tenant level private link. In my organization, this is disabled. You've seen I was able to access Fabric, but if that would be enabled, then I would be able to connect it to a dedicated VNet, and then that VNet would be like a channel for me. Then the scenario that is often used, it's like this network is then connected to Express Link, and the internal network of a company is directly connected to Azure data center, and it's a channel which is totally separated from internet. And that's the first option that can be used. Another option is through user authentication. So it's like it is set on the Entra ID or Entra level. You can set up a policy that can tell that only, let's say, you can connect from specific IP, set of IP addresses, or only specific users may access the service. So it's like you can limit it from this side. Of course, the other side, let's say the next story, is about licensing, because users who access Power BI or access Fabric, they need to be licensed. So if users are not licensed, they are also not going to access. But let's say we want people to access Fabric, but we need to limit it somehow. So we've got two options. One is to use the network. The other is to use the limitation through Microsoft Entra. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is when we want the service to access data securely. So first of all, let's have some sort of a scenario. My scenario is that I have a process that needs data, and that data is stored in Azure SQL DB. Who knows Azure SQL DB? What is it? It's a database. It's a SQL database, not more. Database as a service, or let's say as a platform, I would say. If you have ever configured, we will have a look at that these settings in a moment. But what you can see is, like, by default, this database is accessible only through public IP address or public IP address set. And that's not necessarily the safest method. If you apply your application to be certified in an organization, usually the security department comes in, and when they vet your solution, one of the first things to look is this really like free public access to your service or not? Is it secure? What you can do, you can go through private access, which means that you can create a network, virtual network, and channel this traffic through your own network configuration of your Azure tenant. And you can use either managed virtual network, which means that you're shifting your SQL server from public IP addresses to private IP addresses. The other thing is that you can use private endpoint, which is like a, let's say, one-to-one connection. But this private endpoint has some limitations. The last thing to look at, is Data Gateway. Data Gateway is a service used in hybrid scenarios, but not only. Data Gateway means that if I have some data inside my network, like let's say on-prem, or this is, I don't know, it's some sort of a data center, this is my data source. So then the network traffic goes through Data Gateway. So it's like, let's say this is my desktop computer. I am inside my company network connected to a server, which is like, let's say, in the next room, or maybe a street somewhere in this presidential hotel. Yes, because there is data center there. But everything is connected through like a local network. And when I publish my report to Power BI service or to Fabric service, it exists now in cloud. And it cannot, when you refresh it, when you want to feed it with new data, there is no connection to my internal network. That's why there is a data gateway service existing for that. But if we go back to, let's go back to this managed, let's say, artifacts, virtual network and private endpoint. It's like it's like there are some limitations in that. And how does it work? You see, this fabric is somehow isolated, but what does it mean, fabric? Fabric is like it's not a ghost. It is actually a set of virtual machines. Some of these virtual machines, they host Spark clusters. And these Spark clusters can use private endpoints to access any resources that are secured in our virtual network. But these virtual networks or endpoints, they are used only by Spark clusters. Maybe in the future there will be a few other services that are in Fabric that will make a utilization of these private endpoints, but so far only you can access from your notebooks, for instance. And you have to remember, when you create your Fabric instance, you need to be aware in which region you're creating it, because in terms of Fabric functionalities, they vary by region. It's like a year ago in Polish region, like Fabric was very, very limited. Maybe just, 2-3 services. In West Europe, it was like a full flavor. Now Poland is okay-ish, because, yesterday the build started and the new functionalities have been announced. Not everything is accessible here in Poland. Recently, I was creating my training instances in Sweden because they have full flavor of functionalities, of Fabric functionalities. But if you plan your data analysis solutions, look at the limitations in terms of features that are enabled in each region. You can be unpleasantly surprised. Also, the other problem would be that because what you can do, if you're not familiar with Fabric, your organization may give you opportunity to use trial instance. But for trials, you cannot select region. It's your home region, which you're going to use for Fabric trial. So architects, be aware of these functionality limitations. They can be also applied to network settings. So data gateway. Actually, this is the oldest service in Power BI, let's say, because Power BI exists for like 10 years now. And it was, I said it is something that gives us opportunity to use on-prem data sources. Because look, this is me developing report, connecting to on-prem database, and once this report is published here, without data gateway, the cloud service is not able to get here. You need to have on-prem gateway. Very good thing is that this is well-developed service and not only used by Power BI itself as a reporting service, but also by Data Factory, for instance, which can take data from your on-prem data source, bring it here. And then this data is available for your data analysis solutions. Plus, these data gateways, they also can be used in your isolated cloud networks. Like if you have a VM that is not connected to internet or not routed to internet, you can also install data gateway and then register it in Fabric or Power BI to be able to use any sources that are enclosed in these virtual networks. So let's have a look where these settings are in the service. So you can have like a little bit of a flavor where to set it up. Of course, this is going to be ClickOps now, but normally you can script it out, and this can be part of your Terraform or any other way to deploy your Azure items. So first thing, I wanted to show you the settings on the source side, which is like a SQL database. And On the SQL side, you have something like a server and the database itself. And it's a server which is routing connections. So we have to go to server settings, and in server settings we've got a section called networking. In networking, by default, the public access is enabled. Plus, we have to watch one more thing, which is down here. Allow Azure services and resources to access this server. If this checkbox is on, this means that any Azure service can access our SQL server, which means that our competition also can try to hack our machine. Yeah, especially if you are using not only Entra ID as authentication method, but the older method like a user and password, then it might be somehow easier for them to try to get in, or try to actually use the brute force to break in. But what can we do to protect our source? First thing is like, first of all, we can establish firewall. First of all, this setting should be off in any scenarios that you use, even dev test or something like that. Second thing is that you can limit the public access through these firewall rules. These firewall rules are internal settings of SQL Server. So, and they also can be established programmatically, even from within inside of a SQL Server. So you can, I don't know, provide dynamic list of IP addresses which are allowed to connect to this machine or to the server. But of course, the more secure way is to use this private access. And what does it mean that you use private access? This means that if we go, let's go to Power BI first, and let's go to a workspace, because if you work with Power BI or with Fabric, you've got something like workspaces. These are like a group of objects. You assign this group to, let's say this is like a folder dedicated to logistics department, to controlling department, to I don't know, to board, to any piece of the organization that needs a set of reports or part of the analytics solution. And I've got something like a workspace here. There are no reports here, but there are some objects like lakehouse and warehouse. But if I want these services to access securely my SQL Server, then I would need to go to workspace settings. And inside workspace settings, we've got something like network security. And normally, there's nothing here. And to establish or to make a connection to that SQL Server, I need to go to the server, grab the ID of my, or let's say resource ID of my server. Look here, I just copy it, go there, create. Let's call it Azure Congress. Put the network in the identifier. It should be recognized as Azure SQL database, and let's say my message is give me that access. Duplicate. Let's maybe delete this one and create it from the scratch. access now. Create. It already exists. Maybe let's find another SQL server. Apologies, I was just testing it and it was successful, but it looks like we need to Azure, oh yes, SQL servers. Let's connect to this one. Properties, go on with resource ID, create Congress ID, database, create. What happens is like, this is just the beginning, because it's like, there could be a situation that I'm not the owner of the source, of the data source, because let's say this belongs to a different department, other business unit is the owner, they have to approve it. So I need to go to networking, private access, and you'll see that this request has been registered and it's flagged as pending. And if I go here, I can approve it or reject it. If I say approve, yes, my master. And then this endpoint is going to be created and registered on the Fabric side. And this gives me an option then to connect to that database in a secure manner. But only this is for notebooks and job definitions, which means like for any other, let's say, sources, I would have to use the other methods. This provisioning, it will take about 3 minutes, something like that. So we are not going to wait for it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that when you create private, not endpoints, but virtual networks, the problem that you may step on is the DNS name. Because once you attach your SQL server to a private network, you will have a different URL to be accessible. Then this may become a little bit of a problem. The same is when you use private link to access Fabric itself. The thing that I said on the beginning. It may take up to even 24 hours for the name to be registered. But then it gives you the opportunity to access the resources securely. Once this is created, you will be able to open like notebooks and connect to that machine securely. But to push it forward, your security, it's like SQL Server has, let's say, 2 methods of authentication. One is through Entra ID, so it's like me as a user of, let's say, somebody who accesses this database, accesses Azure resources. I can register as an admin. I can register myself as a user and then access various resources. Or I can give somebody else access to the database based on the, I don't know, the resources that they need, tables, views, stored procedures, and so on. These users, they need to be registered inside the database. So it's like you can limit access by something called database roles. But inside Fabric, Fabric is not a user. Fabric service. It's not the user. What you can do to make Fabric as a user, of course, you can use service principal. Whoever is an Azure admin, you probably use service principals. But we know that for service principals, we need what? The ID and what? Secret. We usually store the secret in Key Vault. But we know that we can use something like managed identity. And for managed identity, recently, Microsoft introduced something like workspace identities. And these workspace identities, they can be also a user in your database. So what you have to do is like register this user as a login in database, and then you'll be able to use not a user and password, but manage identity as a method of accessing data itself in the database. And this is the preferred way to limit access in the database, to use managed identity with this ID. This ID is automatically generated. And once this is registered, this user, because every service inside Fabric will be represented by this user. So, any questions to this data security in Fabric?
I do not think we have any questions.
I'm staying here for a few more minutes. If you're too shy to, raise your hand, I'm still available.
So if any of you has questions, please join our speaker after the presentation. But right now, thank you so much for joining us for our Congress.
Thank you very much.